There are a lot of issues with the New York Jets, and today we are going to be addressing them here on the channel. Hey, Jet fans, welcome back to another video on Jack Talks Jets. And as you've read in the title and what I just said a few seconds ago, today we are going to be looking at some of the Jets' biggest issues position-wise and how the Jets can fix them, and in my opinion, what are the best options for the New York Jets to fix those issues entering the 2026 offseason here. So I have a bunch of positions up on my other monitor here. I will let you guys see what I am seeing as well, or I will let you guys see the guys that I handpicked for positional upgrades and new guys on the team, all that kind of stuff. As you can see, 3 guys and a sneak peek down below in the graphic, so we'll get to that in just a minute. So let's go over the positions before I dive into all the names, shall we? So we have quarterback. These are the positions that I think the New York Jets have the biggest issues on and what I think they need to fix most. So number 1 is quarterback. That is probably the biggest need on the team right now. We have wide receiver for the offense. We have tight end, which, again, is not really that big of an issue, but there is a name in there I would like to mention, just solely off of rumors that have been swirling around the NFL universe. You have defensive line, which is D ends and D tackles. We'll get into that soon as well. We have linebacker, which is a huge need for this team, especially because star linebacker Quincy Williams is unlikely to return to the New York Jets next season. And then you have, last but not least, you have safety / maybe corner. I don't believe I put a corner in there. Yes, all 3 of them were all safeties. So no, there's no corner. It is only safeties for DBs. So let's get straight into it, shall we? The first position we will be starting at is none other than quarterback. As you can see, these are my 4 guys right here for quarterback heading into 2026. Again, like I've mentioned in previous videos, as you guys can see, Ty Simpson in the bottom right corner. I do not really want a quarterback this upcoming draft. I would much rather wait for next season to get a quarterback. Now, that is ideal in my world. However, thinking realistically here, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji cannot go another season without having inexcusable quarterback play, right? Because in my head, the logistical thing to go for them, at least, is get a quarterback in the draft this season, and if there is poor QB play from the veteran, or if they decide to start the rookie week 1, then at least Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji have an excuse to build them off into year 2. That's my thought on it. Other people may have a different opinion, and that is okay. That's just my thoughts on how they are going into this draft and how they're going into this QB situation here. So again, my perspective is they should not draft a quarterback this year, but if Aaron Glenn wants to keep his job and Darren Muji potentially wants to keep his job, I think it's best that they do draft a quarterback this season in terms of their job security, if that makes sense. So we're going to start with the one in the top left corner. We have Marcus Mariota to fill in here. It's a, rather than going, comparing to Kirk Cousins, right, who we're going to get to in just a second, he's a cheaper veteran option, right? I believe he might be cheaper than Russell Wilson at this point. I'm pretty sure he is. He's still mobile. Despite being in his early 30s, he is still a very mobile quarterback. Just, again, not nearly as mobile as he used to be, but he can still be a very reliable, mobile quarterback, which is what you need in the NFL today. You really can't survive in the NFL, or at least it's very rare to survive in the NFL without a somewhat mobile quarterback in the NFL. And you know what? Mariota still has that. So despite being in his early 30s, I would not mind the signing of Marcus Mariota to be a bridge quarterback one bit, and to even be a mentor if the Jets decide to draft a rookie this season. He's a great he has a great locker room presence, right? We saw with the Titans and the Commanders, even though he was a backup for the Commanders, that veteran presence in the locker room, I feel like could do so much for the Jets. I feel like they were lacking that a lot last season, even though they had Tyrod Taylor. Even though I guess the only guys who could say for veteran presence last year that really stuck out was Harrison Phillips, right? I feel like Harrison Phillips was really the only guy that really stuck out to me as being a locker room leader. Again, I may not know stuff. Obviously, I do not know everything that goes on in the locker room. I'm just a suffering teenage Jet fan trying to wonder why the Jets suck so bad, and I talk to you guys about it on YouTube. So, but based off just what I've heard and what I've seen, Harrison Phillips really seemed like the biggest locker room guy, right? And if the Jets can build off of that and get more locker room veterans and more locker room mentors, such as Marcus Mariota or Kirk Cousins, who we're about to get into, I wouldn't mind that at all. And On the flip side, Mariota is a low-risk, high-reward type quarterback. Same thing with Justin Fields last season. Obviously, we saw Fields did not live up to his potential at all. Mariota, with more experience, more starting experience, I feel like has a better chance to live up to that than Justin Fields. Granted, Mariota's prime ended maybe almost a decade ago, right? His prime ended, I would say, 8 years ago when he got benched for Ryan Tannehill on the Tennessee Titans. 7 or 8 years ago, whenever that was. I believe that was 7 years ago now, yes. So he's far beyond his prime. However, he is still, in a nutshell, he's a cheaper veteran option. He's still mobile. You could run a great play action and bootleg plays if Frank Reich decides to put that in his playbook. He's a great locker room presence, and he's a low risk, high reward type quarterback, which is what I believe the New York Jets should go after this season, rather than going all in on a quarterback or starting a rookie week 1, right? So that's the ideal quarterback heading into this season. Let's move on to the next quarterback, which is Kirk Cousins, the current quarterback, about to be former, because it is likely that he will get released by the Falcons soon. So yeah, Kirk Cousins, almost former Falcons quarterback. I believe he is probably I would say he's like in realistic terms, I would say he's my number 1 option right now for the New York Jets that Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, and Frank Reich want to go after for the 2026 NFL season. The only issue is with Cousins, right, is that he's very immobile. He's not mobile at all, and he's aging, right? He's going to be 38 by the time the NFL season starts. By the time week 1 kicks off, Kirk Cousins will be 38 years old at that time, which is a bit of an issue, right? Because the last time we had an aging, non-mobile quarterback, we had 5 wins that season, and I get it. He didn't have a bad season. 28 touchdowns and 11 picks, but again, that's Aaron Rodgers, right? That's Aaron frickin' Rodgers. I don't think Kirk Cousins can do that nowadays. We've seen glimpses of Kirk Cousins being a good quarterback this past season with the Falcons. I will give him that. However, I just don't feel like he's as trustworthy as in terms of competitiveness as maybe a Malik Willis, as we see on the graphic right here, right? So I guess the great thing about signing Kirk Cousins is, again, that veteran who could run a real NFL offense, and just the fact that he has multiple years of starting experience. I feel like that could lead the Jets to at least somewhat of competitive quarterback play, if that makes sense. So Kirk Cousins, right? He's a veteran who can run a real NFL offense. His accuracy on short and intermediate routes, I will say, is one of the best in the NFL. And I guarantee you, if the Jets draft a receiver in this upcoming draft, it will help the young receivers. And it fits Frank Reich's scheme and personal interests, right? Frank Reich is a guy that loves that West Coast offense with quick intermediate passes, right? Frank Reich loves those big-bodied quarterbacks, right? As we've seen in the past with Anthony Richardson of the Colts, with Carson Wentz of the Eagles, right? Frank Reich and Phillip Rivers of the Chargers. Frank Reich loves big-bodied quarterbacks. He's never coached in the NFL, at least as an offensive coordinator or a head coach, without having a primary big-bodied quarterback to lead his team. Which is why I think that Kyler Murray is now off the table for the New York Jets, right? There's a reason why I didn't put him in this graphic here. Otherwise, I would have. If Tanner Engstrand was still around today as the Jets OC, I guarantee you Kyler Murray would probably be number 1 or number 2 on this list for the New York Jets to go grab at quarterback for 2026, right? But now that Reich is in the building and we've seen his history with his quarterback preferences, I believe that a big-body quarterback like Kirk Cousins or Malik Willis or Marcus Mariota is the go-to right now for the New York Jets. And even a rookie quarterback, I get he's not even mentioned on the graphic here. However, like I said this in the last video as well, Drew Aller wouldn't surprise me one bit if he is drafted by the Jets in the 4th round this season, right? I think Aller, he's 6'5", 200. I don't know how much exactly he weighs, but I believe he weighs a little over 215 pounds, somewhere around that. But 6'5", that's like a dream. For a 6'5" young quarterback, that's a dream for Frank Reich, right? And if the Jets do decide to draft a rookie quarterback this year, they have to sit him. Excuse me. I don't want the Jets to start a rookie, whether that be this if they draft one this season, or whether that if they draft one next season. I don't want to see a rookie quarterback start at least until 2027 or 2028, right? So it's better to bring a veteran in here to start and then draft a quarterback to be a backup. That's my ideal plan. But back to Kirk Cousins, right? And again, my final bullet point here on my notes is that he's a bridge quarterback while developing and waiting for a rookie. Like I just said, he's a great bridge quarterback you can bring in for 2 seasons on a 2-year, maybe give him the same deal as Justin Fields, 2 years, $40 million, somewhere around there, maybe a little bit higher than that. But I wouldn't pay a quarterback probably over $40 million, especially like Kirk Cousins if we're going over 2 seasons here. I feel like either a 1-year, $22 million, 1 year, $20 million kind of thing for him, I feel like is pretty good right now. Again, I'd have to take a look at his current contract with the Falcons and maybe estimate it a little bit off of that as well. But right now, I feel like I wouldn't pay over $50 million for a quarterback right now that's not at least a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I just wouldn't. So Cousins is a great option. However, the only issue is that he's immobile and he's aging, right? That's the only thing I struggle with Kirk Cousins about. So now let's move on to the next quarterback on this list, which is Malik Willis, who has, I believe, in my opinion, the highest upside out of any of these quarterbacks that I've named so far. I think Willis, he adds to the rushing element, which, again, mobile quarterback is exactly what you need. His passing is good. It has improved. We've seen improvement with his passing accuracy and ball placement over the past few seasons. However, it is still an issue, especially his deep ball. His deep ball can be an issue at times, which is why I hope the Jets can fix that soon, especially with hiring their new QB coach. They cleaned house and hired a whole new staff for Aaron Glenn this season. I hope that can fix the roster indefinitely this season. So, Malik Willis, again, has the highest upside option out of any of these quarterbacks, I believe, here. He adds a lot of rushing element to the offense, very mobile, and he's still young enough to develop, in my opinion. He was only drafted 4 years ago, and he's never gotten a starting chance in the NFL, like a week 1 starter, right? In my opinion, I believe the Miami Dolphins are most likely going to sign him, right? So that's why he's my third option here, just because of the fact that I think he's not going to go to the Jets. I believe he's going to go to the Miami Dolphins this season. And, back to his upsides, if coached correctly, he could be the long-term answer, right? Maybe we won't even need a rookie quarterback in the future. Granted, I think the Jets will ultimately end up drafting a quarterback. I think a rookie's going to start whether that be 2027, maybe even this season if the Jets are desperate to just throw a quarterback out there. So Willis, in a nutshell, has the highest upside, if coached correctly, can be the long-term answer, and he's still young enough to develop, right? Those are the 3 main bullet points I have for Malik Willis. And then a rookie quarterback. To finish it off with the quarterbacks, we have a rookie quarterback. I think it's most important for the long-term future to draft a rookie quarterback. Like I said, I'd rather wait for 2027. However, I could see the Jets drafting a quarterback this season, whether that be Ty Simpson right here in the graphic, whether that be Garrett Nussmeier somewhere in the 3rd round, or whether that be Drew Aller somewhere in the 4th round, right? I think the New York Jets can draft any quarterback, or can draft one of those 3 QBs. If they were to draft a QB, I believe it would be one of those 3, unless for some reason they decide to trade up to the number 1 pick and get Mendoza. But Mendoza would be the ideal option, right? If the Jets are able to get their hands on Fernando Mendoza, I mean, just hearing the name Fernando Mendoza is like a dream, right? But in my opinion, I've said this multiple times on the show as well, I don't think the Jets should trade up. You'd have to give up way too much, and I don't think Mendoza is that valuable where you have to give up multiple first-round picks to go get him. Sure, it's a dream, but that doesn't mean you should turn it into reality, right? Like, at this point, like, if the Jets, this is what debacles me most. This is what bothers me most about this front office. I wouldn't like be shocked at all if the New York Jets try to go trade up for Fernando Mendoza, just because we've seen Aaron Glenn and Woody Johnson both hit the panic button before, whether that be Glenn firing Engstrand and assistant coaches 3 whole weeks after the season ends. That may not surprise me because, at that point, if they do that, the Jets don't even know reality from fantasy, right? You can't fantasize on having your quarterback for the future and then give up multiple first-round picks when we haven't even seen Mendoza step on an NFL field yet, which is why I think it's stupid for the New York Jets to, trade multiple first-round picks, which is probably what the price is, to go up and get Fernando Mendoza. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. Let's get back to the most realistic options. Like I said, Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeier, and Drew Aller, I feel like, are the most realistic options, for the New York Jets to go after in this upcoming draft. So let's move on to the next position on this list. Let's go with the wide receivers. The wide receivers is arguably, I would say, our second biggest need on the team right now besides quarterback. And we don't need a number one. I'm not trying to look for a new number one receiver because obviously Garrett Wilson is our number one, hopefully for the long-term future. Hopefully he does not request a trade anytime soon. But anyway, these four guys right here on the graphic, as you can see on your screen, are my four most wanted guys that the New York Jets should go after. Number one is getting Alec Pierce in free agency. I think Pierce has a better chance of going back to Indianapolis than going to the Jets. But again, it's always good to talk about it. It's always good to hope the New York Jets can go try to get Alec Pierce, right? He's a true deep threat, which is what the Jets desperately need. He stretches defenses vertically. Again, the Jets desperately need that as well because over the past couple seasons, they've been compressing defenses into stopping them, under 10 yards, which is why the Jets are always forced to have 3 and outs on a lot of drives. He helps any QB by creating space underneath as well. If Garrett Wilson, again, if they want to pair up Garrett Wilson with a good receiver, I think Alec Pierce is one of the best to do it. His contested catch ability, I think, for not being the biggest wide receiver, I still think his deep ball ability, or his deep threat ability, is one of the best in the NFL. He fits as a wide receiver 2 perfectly, I believe. He's been the Colts wide receiver 2 for at least 3 seasons now, I believe. At least 3 or 4 seasons, possibly. I don't know exactly when he was drafted. I'll have to look at that. Or when he came into the NFL, I'll have to look at that. But by the time, with his time with the Colts, I believe he's been a very solid wide receiver 2 for them. And I would actually really like if the New York Jets can go and get Alec Pierce to fill in as their wide receiver 2 for next season. The next one on this list, the rest of them are all rookies. Let's go with Makai Lemon. Next, from the wide receiver out of USC. He's an explosive playmaker, man. If you watch Makai Lemon's tape over this past season, he's such an explosive playmaker and a yak threat. A yak threat, I feel like, is also what the Jets need a lot of. Again, he's not really a contested catch guy, which is what I feel like the Jets need most to at least give Garrett Wilson some breathing room. However, I believe he's still a very valuable wide receiver the New York Jets should go after in the draft. Now, a guy that I feel like I should have put on here instead of Jordan Tyson, now that I'm thinking about it, is Denzel Boston, right? I do regret, actually, I made this graphic a couple days ago when I was planning for this video. I believe I made this actually before I recorded my video last night, or yesterday, or 2 days ago now, excuse me. And that was before I really started watching Denzel Boston, because I actually really started diving into Denzel Boston's tape actually that day that I recorded my last video. So that completely changed my mind over Jordan Tyson. And also just because of the sheer fact that Jordan Tyson's injury prone makes me very concerned about him as well. But anyway, back to Makai Lemon. He can work a slot and motion packages. He could work in a lot of slot and motion packages as well, which is a great thing to see in a wide receiver, right? If you have just an athletic wide receiver like that, I think just any wide receiver at this point will upgrade the Jets receiver room significantly. He adds a lot of quick game juice and adds a lot of, greatness to a modern offensive scheme, right? Again, that would have been the case if Tanner Engstrand was still the OC, but we'll have to see what the deal is if the Jets get him at 16, if he's even available at that time, what Frank Reich will do for him. Maybe they'll turn him into a deep threat. Who knows? Next on this list is Carnell Tate, which is, again, this is a guy who's a big-bodied outside receiver. His red zone and contested catch ability is absolutely amazing, which is why I think he's the best option. He's the best receiver, no doubt, in this draft class. And if the Jets have to trade up from pick 16, I wouldn't mind that at all, right? It's not, or I wouldn't mind that too much, right? It's not like It's totally different from trading up to number 1 from number 2, because that's a whole different story. But if the Jets can afford, and they can, if the Jets can afford to trade up to maybe number 6 or number 5, right, with the Jets or the Browns, I think the Jets have a huge chance to get Carnell Tate if that's the case. If not, then, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, Denzel Boston is the way to go. And he gives the Jets a lot of size physically on the boundary as well, which is what they need. Again, they haven't really had that since Mike Williams, and he only played for 6 games and was not good with the Jets at all. So the Jets have really been missing that big-bodied receiver, at least for a few years now. Jordan Tyson, again, I just talked about him a couple minutes ago. He's a smooth route runner with separation ability. He can win at multiple levels, and he fits modern passing offenses. And he has high upside if he's developed properly. However, the only issues with him is he's too injury prone, right? He is way too injury prone for him to be my number 1 option right now. If he was not injury prone, I feel like Jordan Tyson had the potential, to be the number 1 receiver in this draft class. I really do. And I believe he actually was seen as the number 1 wide receiver heading into the season as well. Now, here is where I kind of I don't have a graphic for him because I literally just thought about this name maybe an hour ago before I started filming this. A name that's been popping up a lot on the roster for the Jets to go get this offseason is Ravens tight end Isaiah Likely, right? If the New York Jets can get Isaiah Likely to at least, again, add veteran presence to the locker room, to mentor Mason Taylor. Again, they're like 2 separate bodies. They're 2 separate playing styles at tight end. But I think if you have a veteran presence in there, and if a guy like Isaiah Likely with that skill is right there, and the Jets can afford him, why not? That's just my point. Why not? Right? If you want to develop Mason Taylor into being a good tight end, it doesn't have to be a starting tight end where he's out there 90% of the plays. It could be like a running back where they split reps a lot of the time, right? So if the Jets can get their hands on Isaiah Likely, I wouldn't mind that one bit. I honestly would not. So he's just one of those names I just want to keep out for. I just want to look out for, right? If the Jets can get their hands on him, then I think that would be great. Moving on to the next position is none other than defensive line. Now this is arguably the most stacked our group of names that we have here for this Jets team to go after in the 2026 NFL draft, because all of these guys are in the draft. So let's go. I believe, and one of them is actually a D tackle, which is again what the Jets need a lot of. Let's start with the guy that I've been praising for at least the past month now, is Ohio State linebacker / D end Arvell Reese. He is arguably, in my opinion, one of, if not the best athlete in this entire draft class. He's a versatile front 7 chess piece, is what I'm really trying to say. He can rush, he can cover at times. Again, I'll get into that when we get to the linebackers. He does need to work on his coverage abilities and a little bit, right? He could play downhill. When he plays downhill, I think he is the best pass rusher in this entire draft class. I think Arvell Reese, in my opinion, him and Reuben Bain are the best pass rushers in this entire draft, and I don't think it's even close. Maybe David Bailey. David Bailey, who is actually on this graphic, is 3rd, but I think Reese and Bain are on a whole other level. And he fits the Jets' identity nearly perfectly, right? If the New York Jets are going to run a 3-4 this season, they're going to need to have a rotation at D-line, right? If you can have Arvell Reese play 1st and 2nd down and then bring in Will McDonald to be your 3rd down pass rusher, I think that is a perfect scenario. Same thing with Reuben Bain. And if Reuben Bain, and Reuben Bain's so good at stopping the run. So moving on from Arvell Reese, I think last bit of things for Arvell Reese here. He's powerful, he's athletic, he's a downhill threat, and I think he's a great pass rusher. And I think he fits with the Jets perfectly, which is why I think the Jets should go after Arvell Reese. Reuben Bain, moving on to Reuben Bain now. This guy is an absolute tank. He is a unit, a powerful pass rusher with lots of upside. He can win with strength and leverage. He has a very high ceiling as a disruptive edge, and he helps the Jets get pressure with a forefront, right? Like I said, same thing with Arvell Reese. They can use Reuben Bain as mainly a run stopper, because that's what the New York Jets have lacked the last couple of years, as having a is having a good run-stopping defensive line. The Jets have had one of the worst run-stopping D-lines over the past 2 or 3 seasons. And that's been a real issue. And if the Jets can get their hands on Arvell, Reese, or Reuben, Bain, I think that solves their run-stopping issue, at least on whatever side they're on, right? I really do. I think that would be a dream scenario if the Jets get their hands on Reese or Bain. His power, though, is really what intrigues me. If I think Arvell Reese is powerful, and we've seen it on tape, take a look at Reuben Bain. I mean, this guy is a unit. And just think of all of the aura. This has nothing to do with his skill set. This is just a fun thought that popped into my head a few days ago. I even saw this on social media. Imagine how cool it would be if Reuben Bain is picked number 2 by the New York Jets, and every single week for a home game this upcoming season, there are fans wearing a Bain mask from Batman. And the irony of the Jets being known as Gotham City Football and Bain, I mean, I think that'd be freaking sick. So anyway, moving on from Reuben Bain, we have a guy who is, I feel like, overshadowed by these two, by Reese and Bain, but is still very good, is Texas Tech DN David Bailey. He has all of his explosive traits are very similar to Arvell Reese, actually, I believe. He is very speedy off the line. The Jets love that, especially over the past couple of seasons with Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson. The Jets need a guy who is speedy off the line. He could be a rotational rusher immediately. He has very high upside, and he has a high upside gamble with big payoff, is really what I'm trying to say here. I think Bailey is not as good as Bain or Reese, but he's definitely a name that I would watch out for if the Jets want to get him, maybe at pick 16, if he's still available. Now, here's a guy I feel like a lot of fans aren't eyeing. I have recently just gotten to know who this player as a player, right? And I've watched some of his tape. I've watched some of his highlights, because, again, highlights isn't really the best thing to watch, but it's definitely a good thing to watch. This is why I feel like, tape is kind of the best thing to learn, just to see if it's a trap, if a pick is a trap, I'm very glad I actually found him on tape here, because this guy in the bottom right, Skylar Gill-Howard, I feel like is a very underrated defensive tackle in this upcoming draft class. He's a developmental pass rusher with a lot of hybrid potential. I feel like he could play as a good D-end as well. He could add interior pressure, which is huge in today's NFL. He puts in a lot of depth for the Jets' D tackles behind Harrison Phillips and Jawan Briggs. He's an upside. He has a lot of upside as a future starter in the NFL. Again, he may be a round 4 pick, but that doesn't matter. On tape, he looks solid. He actually looks pretty solid, which is why I wouldn't mind if the Jets go after him or a guy like Zane Durant. I believe that guy's name is from Penn State, in the 4th round. I really would not mind that. Moving on to linebackers now. We have the LBs here, which is, again, I believe is probably the 3rd biggest need right now for the New York Jets. You got to have guys like Arvell Reese, Alex Anzalone, Sonny Styles, and C.J. Allen, right? C.J. Allen, I feel like I just snuck him into the graphic actually not that long ago, and he's actually a guy I've just started watching, and man, I'm slowly falling in love with his play style by the day. But starting with Arvell Reese, he's a 3-down linebacker potential. If the Jets want to go into a 3-4, maybe they have Reese playing linebacker on 1st and 2nd down, or maybe they have Reese playing D on 1st and 2nd down and send him back into linebacker on 3rd down. Maybe that could work. Again, here's the thing. I feel like he's good at covering a lot of running backs and tight ends, which is quite rare if they do send him back into coverage. But we've seen him have a lot of upside in coverage, but we've also seen him struggle a lot in coverage, right? Over the past year with Ohio State, Arvell Reese has had a lot of potential to become a good coverage linebacker. He's just struggled at it a little bit, which is why I think if the Jets are able to coach him out of that, which I believe they can, I mean, it's the pros. If this guy's going to go if this guy's a projected number 2 overall pick, I think he should be coachable enough to be coached into having great coverage abilities. Maybe not great, but at least good coverage abilities for a linebacker to at least help out Jamien Sherwood. He's And he is also, like I said, he's an immediate impact player, like I said, when he was in the D-line portion. I think if the Jets can just fix his coverage issues, I think he could be a great coverage linebacker. Picking up a free agent here, which is what I almost 100% think Aaron Glenn will go after him, is Lions linebacker Alex Anzalone, a veteran leader. He's steady and reliable. He helps with communication and alignment. He's has very solid coverage IQ compared to Arvell Reese. He's a good bridge linebacker while the Jets develop younger guys because he's getting on the older side. So he may not be perfect, but I think he is a very solid, at least. I wouldn't say bridge. Actually, I take that back. Not bridge. I would say I think he could be a solid starter for the Jets maybe over the course of 2 seasons or so. So I think I wouldn't be mad if the Jets sign Alex Anzalone one bit, especially because he's familiar with Aaron Glenn. I think that's the most realistic option out of any of these guys. I think Alex Anzalone is 100% going to be a New York Jet this upcoming season. Moving on to Sonny Styles out of Ohio State, a very good hybrid linebacker safety type, which both positions the New York Jets need. His speed and athleticism for modern defenses is something that the New York Jets lack so much. The New York Jets lack speed and athleticism on this defense, right? If you saw last season, the Jets were getting beat in almost every single stat. The Jets did not record a single interception last season. I believe that, it's a lack of skill as well. And I think Sonny Styles would bring so much skill to this Jets defense that I think he would be a great fit for them. C.J. Allen, again, I don't really know much about him because, like I mentioned, I just started watching him very recently. But he looks very good. He looks very good in terms of, IQ and coverage. I think C.J. Allen's coverage is one of the best in this linebacker class, right? He's right there with Sonny Styles. So, again, not a lot to say about him, but I believe he looks very good, and I would not be surprised if the Jets go after him at pick 16 if he's still available. And the final position we have is safety, which is a sneaky big need for the New York Jets. Again, not a lot of people were really talking about our need for safety this upcoming year. Let's pull up the safety graphic. Actually, I forgot that for a second. Bingo. So we have 3 guys instead of 4 for safety because I feel like there's not a lot to choose from, especially if the Jets aren't going to get Caleb Downs, which is, again, they could, but I believe that's unlikely. I don't think the Jets are going to get him. So there are 2 guys the Jets can get in the draft and 1 guy they can get in free agency, which, again, I feel like it's this guy in free agency. Not a lot of people are talking about the New York Jets to get. First guy we're going to talk about is Oregon safety Dylan Thieneman. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I don't really know how to pronounce his last name. I believe it's Thieneman, though. But what I've seen through his tape and highlights, he's very smart. He has great ball skills and great playmaking skills. He helps his defense get a lot of turnovers, especially during the college football regular season. I saw that a lot throughout him and the Oregon defense. He's a how can I word this? He's a kind of like a plug-and-play starter type, if that makes sense for the Jets, which is, again, the Jets lack a physical safety, which is what I think him and A.J. Haulcy are, which is exactly who our next guy is. It's A.J. Haulcy. I don't know why I keep saying Salcy. I said Salcy last video as well. A.J. Haulcy, the safety for the LSU Tigers. He's physical. He's aggressive. He can play downhill in the run game if he's not in coverage. He adds toughness to the secondary, and he's a strong fit for the Jets' defensive culture if they want to go back to that hard-hitting, respected defense that they once were a few years ago. A.J. Haulcy would be a great second-round safety along with Dylan Thieneman at pick 44. Right, pick 44 is ideal for either of these safeties. And then the final player out of this entire video is a guy I feel like not a lot of Jet fans are eyeing, and that's Colts safety Nick Cross. Again, he didn't have the perfect season last season. He didn't have a great season last season. However, his athletic safety with speed, or he's an athletic safety with a lot of speed. He's very versatile as he can play multiple safety roles. He has a lot of NFL. He has quite a bit of NFL experience already, and he brings in upside if Jets coaching unlocks him, if that makes sense. So he's just a name I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about, but in my opinion, has a lot of upside in this league. And he's also still very young. He's only 24 years old, turning 25 this year. So he's like Malik Willis, like I mentioned at the start of the video. He's still able to be developed. He is still able to be developed as an NFL player. But anyway, let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Let me guys know what you guys think the Jets' biggest issues are, and let me know in the comments below. I will come out with a new video very soon, whether that be draft talk, free agent talk, whatever that might be. I believe it's actually going to be covering the Jets' new coaching staff. That's most likely what it's going to be. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you are new, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like button. And I will see you all next time. Peace out, Jet fans.